the cloud.
Yeah,
Did
got
it.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, whoever remembered that, because I didn't. Okay, now I want to share screen again. And I want to share with this one. And that should be FUUSB. There we go. Oh, come on, video cannot be loaded. No, it was working just fine until now. Oh, come on now. Let me back up a little bit and see what happens. Testimonial. Oh, here we go. Here we go back to the beginning. All right. What is the eighth principle? And this is preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but if anybody else showed up and didn't know, I just thought I ought to give something quick. So here we go. Paula Cole Jones and Bruce Pollitt Jones developed this principle because, now that's in the way. Said, quote, a person can believe they are being a good UU and following the 7 principles without thinking about or dealing with racism and other oppressions at the systemic level, unquote. And that's one of the first questions that came to my mind when I read the 8th principle was, wait a minute, we already got all that covered in the first 7, but the emphasis here was that, yes, we got it all covered, but we haven't really said what needs to be done most urgently, and this is supposed to be bringing that out. This 8th principle has been adopted by more than 150 congregations out of the 1,050 congregations nationally. And the UUA has been reviewing the 8th principle since 2017 and is expected to make a decision by 2024. Now, some of you probably know about this much more than I do, but supposedly the what do you call them? Our rules of how we operate the society. What am I trying to say?
Bylaws.
Bylaws. Thank you very much. I'm just losing. All right. The bylaws get visited once every 15 years, and that 15 years is coming up in 24. So sometime before 24, assumedly in 23, they'll be voting nationally as to whether the UUA wants to adopt this 8th principle. And that's where that 2024 comes from. All right, come up one more. And here is the 8th principle. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multiple cultural, beloved community by our actions that are accountably dismantle, that accountably dismantle racism, yes, and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. And this is one that requires that, here is where the action is specified what we need to do. All right, and the third one, what makes this 8th principle important? This principle is an active principle where we will be accountable to ourselves to dismantle racism and other oppressions. This principle asks us to do the anti-racism and anti-oppression work as an individual and as a member of the UU Society. This principle has been developed and written by Black UUs, which I did not know, and they are asking us to do this work. So that is from the Burlington, and it seems to me to be a very precise summary of what we're trying to do with the 8th Amendment. Now, amendment, the eighth principle. Now I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to unshare this one. And I'm going to go to our website, if I can find it. No, it's not that one. It's here somewhere. I can log back into it if it got away somewhere. Okay, I'm going to drop my Zoom for a minute. Oh, oh, I know what the problem is. No, that didn't do it. Well, I can't believe this. I had it working really smoothly. Exit full screen, and it should be sitting right there. All right. Ah, here, finally. All right, now with that, I should be able to go back to Zoom and share it. And so we are sharing this one and share. All right, you recognize our home. I hope you guys are seeing our website.
Yes, we are.
Excellent, good. Now, Lynn has done a superb job with his website. And so all we have to do is come up here and click social justice. And right at the top of well, come on, here, the eighth principle under social justice. And here we are. And if we go into the text here and click eighth principle, we have, again, a statement, but on our own website of this eighth principle. And there is a reference here to learn more. So I'm going to click on that. And now we have a bunch of things like where did this come from originally? We can go in and find out all the details how this eighth principle came about and why it's needed now, and why the UUA, not USA, why single out racism, because there are many other problems. What is beloved community? There's a good definition for that. And what does it mean to be accountable? Now, I see Annetta has joined us. And Annetta, were you part of this group? You're muted.
Yes, I was.
Ah, good deal. Do you remember the people on the committee? We were trying to remember who were on it to start with.
Well, Rod Sauter was leading it. Then there was, oh shoot. Who else was in it?
The Thomases, right?
Right.
And Maggie.
Yes. Oh. Holy cow. There was lots of us. I would have to go back to our list of email.
That's all right. We were just trying to see if we'd missed anybody. Okay, so we know that what was when Rod left, there just didn't seem to be leadership got back together. Is that correct?
Well, I also think after our congregation voted on it, then we thought we kind of needed to think about how we and the congregation needed to take it forward from there, you know, kind of make a plan together with the congregation, you know, kind of open it up and see where the congregation wanted to take it rather than just the tiny group.
And why that never happened?
Well, I think because it wasn't just our group that took it there, you know. Reverend Kolani was also in the group, so you know, it's if you're losing, so to speak, co-leaders, then I think also some other members left the group, so there was just
a dearth of leadership.
Well, so you know, several things came together, you know. Sure. So yeah, and maybe other priorities in the congregation took over at the moment. You know, we kind of needed to regroup our priorities for the moment. Maybe that was it. I don't want to speak for everybody, you know, but I'm as soon as it pops up again, I'm there, you know.
Good.
Yeah.
And several of the other people I talked to said that would be the case with them also. And
yeah, because I'm still in the multicultural group that will meet later this afternoon after this event. So that has been going on. So and went on parallel to the 8th principle group. So we do have several groups that keep on going, you know, that have interests. So, you know, it's not like everything in this congregation fell apart, you know. It's and I think with the 8th principle group, the reason a huge reason we lost some of our members, group members, also had to drop out for health reasons. So, you know, it wasn't just because Reverend Kolani left. So, you know.
Okay, so I guess what I was hoping was that we would have some kind of an agreement or volunteers or something to try to reconstitute this, because it is part of the, it seems like it's bound to be part of the UUA, our bylaws, and which, by the way, something I noticed in the statement, it says, and hopefully somebody can straighten me out on this. These things, all the 7 principles, all say we, the UUA, and the congregations covenant for such and such a thing. Now, the individual societies have to vote on whether or not they want to do these particular things. In this this eighth principle, 200 now, over 200 have voted and said, yes, we support the eighth principle. But you can't say, when it goes into the bylaws for UUA, I think we have to separate out between UUA and individual congregations, because the way the bylaws state these 8 principles, or 7 so far principles, is that the UUA and the member congregations covenant to do such and such.
And that's right, Charlie. What's going on now is individual congregations are voting to adopt it to begin to show the support that is out there for the UUA to actually adopt it. And by the way, I did find one of the last, I think, messages I received from the eighth principle team that lists the people that were on that mailing list. So you got almost all of them that are on here. So, I mean, people that no longer are with us, like Carla Campbell and Tammy Shure was one that was on it. And Vanessa Mendoza, but I think Vanessa's gone, I think she's not part of the church. I don't know. I'd have to go look at my church list, but yeah. Anyway, that seems to be the group. And what I gathered from them, although they were certainly not talking to me a great deal since they felt that I had destroyed the church, they did say that their purpose was to help the church get ready to adopt the eighth principle here at the local level. And so they had not met to talk about what now. And, you know, and I assumed actually that some core group would start going, okay, so we believe in living our religion. What are we going to do? How do we live this? How does this become a principle we live by? But they weren't ready to do that. So I think it's now is certainly an appropriate time to think about how can we do that. Dave's got his hand, but maybe I should tell you that Lisa Peterson, who was on this list, told me that she's been thinking that come January, she would be interested in trying to help get it restarted, even though she wasn't necessarily interested in being the chair. But Rod never wanted to be the chair either. Rod considered himself the facilitator. Right. So Lisa's a possibility, although Lisa has her hands in so many different things right now. I think she's competing with Jennifer Trantham for busiest young New Year. But anyway, that's what I know about it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, just a very minor point, and I have the exact language that the UUA puts out about our principles, and it says, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant and affirm. It doesn't use the language of and. So I think that so we're if we as a congregation can say that this is indeed our principle, regardless of whether the UUA ultimately adopts it in 2024 or not.
Oh, okay. I guess what I was looking at was it says we, the member congregations of the UUA, do such and such. Yeah. And that implies that you can't be a member of the UUA without adopting these principles.
It's not a matter of adopting, it's a matter of covenanting around them.
Right.
We promise one another. We covenant. It's not, it's not a hard and fast rule.
Well, except that it says we all do. that was my concern about the way it's stated.
For our purposes, does it make any difference? Because we, this congregation, have adopted the principle. And
Yeah,
per David's comment about, you know, it sort of puts us on the hook to carry out what the principle states. So we can, I guess the other side of that is, you know, absent maybe an overreaching directive, that we can change our mind at any time and say, never mind. Not that we're inclined to do that, but I'm just saying that's something that we should be able. I don't know what history is. Jan's smiling, so I'm sure she's going to offer an opinion. But just for perspective here, as I understand it, at our last meeting, because this seemed to be what I call an orphan topic almost right now, that the Social Justice Committee decided that we would at least recognize the eighth principle as being an area of interest. That said, we, unlike most of our other topics of interest in social justice, we do not, to my knowledge, Jan and others may have a different point of view, we do not have a person that says that's our go-to person for eighth principle. Is that how you read it, Jan?
Yes. Yeah. But you know, you were saying that, well, every congregation can choose to ignore any one of the principles.
Right.
Okay.
But and we still say that we covenant to affirm and promote. We may not give a whole lot of attention to one of them if that's not the will of the congregation, but they are basic principles to which most UUs, if not all UUs, do covenant.
Yeah,
Okay.
I searched the web and found without any trouble a course of opponents to the eighth principle on various grounds.
Yeah.
But the fact is that I think we voted, and I don't know that it is in our Articles of Confederation. How come? I'm going to write this down. What are they called again?
They're called bylaws.
Bylaws.
Yeah, but the principles aren't in the bylaws.
Yes, they are. Article 2.
Are they? Okay. So
Yes.
That's something else we need to change when we get around to changing the bylaws. Right?
But they aren't in our bylaws. They don't need to be. But
that's what I meant. I thought
if we want them in our bylaws, we can do that. But they're in the UUA bylaws. They are there.
So we were talking about two different things.
Okay.
Yes, in the UUA, but we don't have them in our bylaws. We have them on our website, and we've included that on our website as something we believe we would be a worthy endeavor, right? We should do.
Right.
We should be trying to do this. So the topic here, although I can see that we're talking to a few of the more committed members in our church, but still, I think it's a question that should be raised. We should.
Article 2 also includes a listing of some values that we hold dear. And I've just changed my background to show when they asked people to name their top values, these are the ones that came up, and the largest were the most commonly chosen. So, love, compassion, respect. These are our values, and they are included to some degree in Article 2 of the UUA bylaws.
Right. So, but see, I didn't understand that. I haven't seen our bylaws. I figured they were going to have to be changed. But Susan, where do we say that we voted for the eighth principle?
It's in the minutes from the board, from the congregational meeting where we voted to do that. But that's, as far as I know, that's.
Well, in the spirit of that question, would it be appropriate to memorialize, acknowledge on the website, which, as Charlie mentioned, Lynn has created for us, the fact that on a certain date, this church adopted the eighth principle, for example, which was nominally, I guess I'd have to say, step 2 in the process, step 1 being wrestling with understanding it, and then step 1 being wrestling with it, and then number 2 was actually adopting it. And where we are right now is the 3rd step, that is acting on our principle, as it were. But in that vein, Susan, you probably know more about this or recall more in detail than I do. In all the visioning that we did, and all of some of the other ones, I don't recall the 8th principle being a hot topic. Let's put it that way.
It was mentioned.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
it was raised by some people. Hot topic, probably not.
Okay, because it just in the sense of saying where people are centered, they were, and obviously we were in a transition period, but this was, if this, no one sort of said, I'm going to try to carry this treasure across the finish line or something in the course of all that. But I guess that's part of this discussion, is how we pick it up again.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where Lisa Peterson's mention of being interested came from, is one of those breakout meetings. But I talked to Lisa and she mentioned it, but I'm pretty sure that it was in probably the building community breakout.
But now you say she was maybe interested in January doing something.
Yeah, you all know teachers or professors, should I say, at NMSU, and they get overcommitted. And at the moment, she's feeling quite overcommitted, but she's interested in this and wanted me to know. And as far as I'm concerned, it might make sense because we got a lot of things to worry about and make decisions on in the next 2 months without trying to restart the 8th principle. How we live it fascinates me because there are very few Black people in this community. Like, what is it, 2%? So it's not likely that we could do, okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to find more Black people to join the church. So but I think when we talk about principles, we talk about what the church can do, yes, but honestly, it's more of an individual commitment in this church. And some of us, like Dave Steele, are more committed to the interdependent web of life of which we are all a part. And some of us are more committed to other ones, but they're all our principles. So how do we do this? That's Dave.
Oh, you are correct in terms of the percentage you give in terms of the demography of our community. And we do have very, very few Black people, but I just wanted to remind people that this principle applies to racism, and racism, it applies to, our Latinx persons, indigenous persons, and racism is, even implicated in a lot of anti-Semitism. So it's not just Black people, but there's lots of other people who are victims.
Right. The principle also says that the 8th principle also says that other oppressed groups. So we have our LGBTQ people, we have the other races that Dave mentioned, we have people who are differently abled, who are disadvantaged, people who are economically disadvantaged, so there are all kinds of places where the 8th principle applies. And we make a mistake when we associate the 8th principle with Black people.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
That is that is the group that started us thinking about the eighth principle, but it applies well beyond that population.
That's a good point, Jim.
Dad,
And
I think you were going to say something.
when we heard Bobby Green, she talked to us about the shootings of people of color in Las Cruces in the last, maybe it was the last 10 months. And how,
6 months, 6 people.
6 months, okay. Yeah. And how concerned they were and how they wanted others to stand with them in saying, we want an independent review board established where people can have subpoena power and have the ability to make recommendations to the police. Now, for some of us, or maybe it was just me, that's kind of scary, because I don't want the police to target us as a problem congregation. So how we do that respectfully, but that was just one thing that certainly would fit into, is there some we could do as a congregation, or even that members of us could be encouraged to do. So I'm thinking maybe that's the sort of thing we'd be looking for if we try to get this restarted, is, what would make a difference in our community? Where are enough of us willing to take a stand? So I don't know. That's about the sum of my thinking on this so far. So.
Right. The Multicultural Awareness Group has 2 projects that we're working on. One is to ensure that the indigenous sacred land of Tortugas Mountain not be sullied with Aggie town or something like that. They want to put commercial businesses right up against the mountain, and the indigenous people do not want that to happen. And we're, writing letters and making statements as individuals, but because we're on the Multicultural Awareness Group. And the other is we did a little fundraising among ourselves and bought headlamps, gloves, and hand cream, the super duper hand cream, to donate to the farm workers, the farm laborers in this area, so that the ones that pick onions at night have the headlamps so that they can see what the heck they're doing. And the gloves, of course, protect somewhat hands, and then you've got to have the hand cream to further protect those hands that the book My Grandmother's Hands talks about. And right now we've got cotton coming in, cotton going to be harvested. And while we have machinery that does a lot of that, there still is hand picking that occurs. And so anyway, we're working with the farm workers.
So is the agricultural workforce then considered, in your view, an oppressed group? Is that how you're bringing this in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely they're an oppressed group. And we're working legislatively to try to get the way in which they are paid changed to be fairer, and other assorted things. So there's room for the congregation, and we keep meaning to write up something for the congregation to ask if they would also like to contribute to these efforts to help the farm workers. And now Rabbit's out of the country. She was going to take information that Jane would provide her, and Jane is all wrapped up in the election, and write something that we could publish. So, that's all on hold for the moment.
Dave?
Yeah, and I see that Susan was talking, so I'll just quickly. It seems to me that we've already got the nexus of a champion group for the eighth principle in the multicultural group. And they're already, as individuals and as representatives of our congregation, taking steps to be accountable for abiding by the values and the principles stated in the 8th principle. So, you know, I think after the November 8th election and maybe moving into the first of the year, that you know, that group is a logical place to you know, begin the effort of you know, sort of building out. And it sounds like they're already in the process of thinking about that. And just a champion, one of the key champions, is out of the country for a few weeks. So,
All right, Susan, did you?
Well, I was just saying, I was listening to what you were saying and say, yes, early next year, I think is reasonable, even though it feels like we've been putting it off for a year.
Things have been happening.
We haven't.
Right.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Right. Things have been happening. We have a habit, we don't just read books and study books. We also have guest speakers on various topics, and that's how we moved into this farm worker business and learned so much. And our meetings are open. We invite others to come if you're interested in enlightening yourself and working to be anti-racist. Just saying you're not racist is not enough. You must be anti-racist. And that's what our group is truly working on, is to be anti-racist, which means take action.
Well, Jan, that sounds great to me. If you guys are willing to take this and run with it, it looks like we need some publicity, because we have other people who are interested, supposedly, and just haven't put together an effort. But if you're the core of it, maybe we just ought to put out some publicity saying, please contact your group if you're interested in the, however you would put it, working with the 8th principle.
I don't see us. We're doing what we can do because we're committed. Mm-hmm. We're not the 8th principle group. We just do these things, and we do them because it's the right thing to do once we recognize it as the right thing to do. So I don't know that you want to do away with the 8th principle group. I think there's a benefit in having two groups. Annetta, you're in both. So yeah. What do you think?
Well, the 8th principle group had the specific goal of kind of studying what the 8th principle was for, what the UUA had in mind there, and to introduce then the congregation to it and let the congregation at the end decide, do we want to adopt that principle as the 8th one added to the other 7, or not? Do we need more information? What does it mean for the congregation? Should we wait and see what the other congregations around the country are doing? Should we wait what the UUA is doing? That kind of stuff. So, but I think our congregation then was ready, and we voted on it and said, hell yeah, we are it, and I think, yes, we are it, because in that the state we're living in, we are actually, when you're looking at the demographics, the the white people in the state of New Mexico are a minority, numbers wise. And I think our extremely well educated congregation is aware of that, and we want to do something about it. And so I think if we would get the information out there to our congregation, what the 8th principal group wants to do going forward, and what the multicultural group is doing, and invite people to either one of them, we would get people to get engaged in either one of them or both of them. So, because people are eager to do stuff in our congregation.
So you see that they can continue
side
by side, both of them.
Yeah.
Right. The multicultural, Shirley is not here. Shirley is our leader. She's the one that started the Multicultural Awareness Group as a book study.
Right.
It's all white people who were studying these books and sharing our experiences with racism, internalized and otherwise. And it was a small group just reading books and educating ourselves and expanding our thinking. That's not the 8th principal group.
Right.
Everybody is invited to come, and we have taken action. It's as we have felt settled and this is something we really want to do. We do it. We also studied extensively the Widening the Circle report of the UUA Committee on Appraisal, I think it was, and saw a number of areas there that the congregation, should be looking at and considering making changes. So we could go back to that. I don't want to commit the group. The group has been a book study group of white people. So if I say, let's do 8 principal stuff, that's me speaking. That's not the group speaking.
Yeah. Well, but you have some ideas, and you have 2 things you did.
Well, we do.
And you could invite some people to do with you. Yeah. And I was thinking, Dave, to me, this relates. You told me a story about talking to Willie Madrid about supporting animal welfare. I don't remember exactly what the thing is, and his reaction to you is very interesting, because it could help us to understand why living into it is not easy. He wasn't terribly impressed with your opinions as one of his what do they call them?
Constituents.
Yeah.
Right? Right. I mean, he just said, you don't live in Chaparral. You don't understand what it's like. And we're going to put traps wherever they're going to catch whatever the hell it was. What was it? Wolves? I don't remember the animal. Right? I mean, it was interesting that
Yeah. Well, and it turns out that what he told me was that the kinds of things that Animal Protection New Mexico is concerned about is all well and good for well-educated, affluent people, but it is not something that that his constituents in Chaparral are particularly concerned about. And then I have since found out that he talked to another person who was talking to him about a related issue. And he said, well, that's really a white person's issue. I'm not particularly interested in that. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that's part of the whole thing of how do we live into this? Because Jan's right. We're minorities as white people, but we also aren't talking their language. And I don't mean Spanish, right? Mm-hmm. We're not connecting with them in ways that we can both understand each other and where we're coming from. So I think it would be very interesting to do some work on this, because UUs like to take action. Yeah. UUs like to do stuff. So anyway, I've enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for deciding to get it going, Charlie.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're leaving it here, but it sounds like maybe if we came together again sometime in January to try to figure out, would we know more by then and people would be back and decide if we, see, my concern is whether or not we have enough people to populate these various committees.
Right.
And, but it seems like, well, I'm not sure at this point. So what do you,
well, one thing you heard here is Jan said Rabbit was going to write something for the light. So in December or January, you know, depending on what makes sense. December is going to get lost in people's heads with all the other stuff that's going on. So, but she could write about why they're looking at the problem of that the indigenous people have and feeling that their culture is being disrespected. So are there people who care, others besides those? Probably. And how about the farm workers? I never thought of them as an oppressed group, but they've certainly been mistreated. And so there's a bunch of things we could start kind of thinking about. We might find a group read. I would not suggest, although I'm sure it's excellent, widening the circle, because the board early on this last year felt that that was going to be something we would do. And it just died from lack of commitment to that given to other priorities. Mm-hmm. Not that it wasn't important, it just didn't rise to the level. And we didn't use it.
Well, it's a very good report. It's an excellent report.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
More people ought to study it. Maybe we need a study group just of that. But Mag has studied it in quite a bit of depth, wouldn't you say, Annetta?
Yeah.
And,
but I think a study here could be, probably would be more interesting if we picked one of the maybe it's My Mother's Hands. I don't know anything at all about that book, but
My Grandmother's Hands.
Well, but I certainly read about
the common read for the UUA is Defund Hate, and I understand that's a pretty good book, and they've got study guides for it, and might be interesting to pursue that too.
Oh, that would
especially be since the many congregations in the UUA are going to be reading and studying it, so. We probably should too. I don't give up on the idea of combining Eighth Principle and MAG, but most of Shirley is out of town, and with Rabbit and Sarah gone too, we can't make that decision now.
Yeah, sure.
We need to talk about it.
No, you're right.
In the meantime, I encourage people to attend MAG meetings, especially if you're white.
Well, in the spirit of Jan's comment, though, I mean, wouldn't we be ahead? Sorry, wouldn't we be ahead to also listen to our NAACP friends? Some of us are members of that group, because, you know, that group is deliberately not, well, they're willing to invite us white folk to attend. But are we willing to listen to them as an advocate for colored people, which is part of their name? And so, I mean, I think that we can, I think that's something else where we would sit as a minority at their table, so to speak. But again, if that would be as meaningful as me as starting another book club, frankly.
Yeah, the NAACP, I encourage you to attend. I encourage you to join. 3 of the officers are white. I mean, you know, they're non-discriminatory. They just want people who will work to end racism and make life better for everybody.
So isn't that, I mean, that seems to be very compatible with at least the intent of our 8th principle.
Absolutely.
Here, here.
So, anyway, that's my thinking. Maybe joining their force a little bit more firmly. Obviously, they're the focus of our current Change for Change collection, but that's sort of putting it on the table, but actually sitting at the table is another story. And it just seems like an opportunity for us without necessarily forming our own committee. They would, as Susan said, occasionally they'll offer us up some options for action. Now, we don't necessarily have to like all those options, but we need to think about them and think about why we, you know, how we respond.
Okay, so
That's good.
What I'm getting is we ought to just keep our eyes and ears open, and maybe sometime in January, try to figure out if we need to do something different. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
BJ?
Have we asked any of the members of NAACP to join our church? I mean, as you call them, colored people or whatever the designation you mentioned, Dave, we don't have any of them joining our group. Maybe some of them could be members too and be part of this 8th principle.
Oh, you mean join the 8th principle group, VJ?
No, join the UU church.
Oh, they already have church affiliations.
That's what the thing is. Yeah.
Yeah. Almost everybody in the NAACP.
principle.
Yeah, they're already well versed on their religion.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's one other comment with Dave Steele, or I saw another hand. I thought, okay.
I did a thumbs up.
Right.
Oh.
when you were summarizing
Okay,
sort of next
well,
steps in the first of the year. So that's
okay. All
Yeah.
right. Very
Good.
good. Thank everybody for coming, because I didn't know why or what to do about having that just poof. And so we'll get together sometime, maybe in January. And oh, by the way, for next roundtable, it's about this election coming up for the bonds. So we will have Carol. What's her name, Dave? Carol.
You're thinking of Beth Bardwell?
Beth Bardwell. Thank you. Yes, that's the one I was trying to remember. Okay, so that'll be next Sunday. Thanks again, and see you later.
Thanks,
thanks,
you.
Charlie.
Bye.
Thanks, Charlie.
Bye.